Support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the trap.
Ravanelli coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Ravanelli spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast, the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro match day chatter in a podcast. And before we start, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a very happy festive season. But we're here to talk about the team that just keeps on giving and gifting teams opportunities. So in the spirit of gifting, guys, let's get our one key takeouts. I'm with Tom and with Matt this week. Matt, I'll come to you first. What's your one key takeout of Boro's draw against Plymouth?
Well, one key takeout is that it was 2 points dropped yesterday. I'm not subscribing to the idea that it was a point gained. I understand we come from behind 3 times and the conditions were tough. But going down to a team, and no disrespect to Plymouth, I thought they were very, very good. They surprised me with how good they were at times. A team who were the worst chance creators in the Championship, with the worst defence in the Championship. For Boro to go there, perform as badly as we did, especially in the first half, where we quite frankly could have been 2 or 3 down, and then continually make the same errors and leave the door open and just allow Plymouth to continually exploit us in the same way over and over again, and be so naive tactically and do pretty much nothing about it, nothing to prevent what was obviously happening to our fullbacks all game, and concede the same goal 3 times. I thought it was really, really poor from us yesterday, both defensively, tactically, and just the overall performance, especially first half. I thought it was just absolutely miles off it. So, a game I thought anything less than a win would have been a poor result. And in the end, we were lucky to come out of it with anything in the end. I thought they were the better side. We snuck out with a point in the end when we really shouldn't have. And it's a game that I think a better side, a top side, would have found a way to manage it better, found a way to win, and that's why we're currently left in a position where we should be in amongst the top 4. We're not. We're actually now in a pretty annoying scrap for the top 6. So, yeah, it was another microcosm of all the problems that have really plagued Boro this season.
And then for you, Tom, are you on the same wavelength there, or are you thinking a little bit different?
Yeah, absolutely on the same wavelength. Not impressed with the game as it went at all. And for me, we just need to be smarter. And that's as an entire team. That includes the coach and staff. As Matt's just said there, it was the same goal 3 times, and there was never any kind of changes from either the coach and staff or even the players to kind of prevent it. Like, you know what? They're getting a lot of joy from these crosses into the box. Maybe, we double up on them like they're doubling up on Dork, or, we do something to prevent these crosses. And maybe like drive the play into the middle a little bit more where they weren't as effective, but we didn't do anything of the sort, and that goes down to, like I said, the coach and staff not making any changes, but the players have to be smarter as well. We can't be relying on getting until half time for Carrick and the coach and staff to be pointing out these mistakes and kind of rectifying them, just as we can't be relying on maybe getting a point despite playing badly, getting at the end of a point or 3 points despite playing badly, getting at the end of the game, learning from those mistakes there, but then either repeating them or, coming up against something new the next week, which we then have to rectify as well. The players in themselves need to recognise when something is like this is happening and be smarter on the pitch, because, like I say, we can't be relying on getting to these points of the game where they can actually speak to their manager. It needs to be it needs to come from the players.
Yeah, I would agree with both of your parts. Mine may be a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think yesterday was the day that Boro's promotion dream died. Unless we tweak it, I think we have to tweak it. The weaknesses yesterday, what Boro have, were glaring, and it's made me go down a bit of a rabbit hole tactically, which I'll come on to in a little bit later on, just around how teams are setting up and getting good success against Middlesbrough right now. But the individual errors that we have, and we talk about it every week, that over time has had that butterfly effect where we are a side that gives away the most chances from our own possession. We're a team that creates moments of madness, and we're getting punished for it now. And it's sides like Plymouth who have really struggled to score goals this season. We made them look really, really good. And I thought we were very fortunate not to be 2 or 3-0 down at half time yesterday. And we could have said that last week on the pod against Millwall, where Boro had moments of madness for the first 10 minutes and could have been 3-0 down again and weren't punished. The game against Leeds, we were definitely punished from the moments that we gave away. So depending on who we're playing against, we're not getting as punished as what we should be in those moments. And yesterday for me was enough to kind of say, well, actually, unless we address it in the market or unless we address it right now, we'll get in the playoffs, but I don't think we'll go up. I just don't think we're good enough. Brutal honesty. You can play some fantastic football. You can create the most chances. You can score a lot of goals, and we're a joy to watch. And we absolutely are all of those things. But unless you address the elephant in the room of Boro being too inconsistent and having too many errors, you will never get up to the Premier League. And if you do, you'll get done 5 or 6-0 every week, like Sheffield United did last season. So I think there's a lot to probably take in, and maybe it's exaggeration on my part, but I'm really positive on this podcast, and I would say that I'm fairly quite balanced. But now that I'm looking at Boro over a wider spectrum, we could be doing too much. But let's see, we can beat those sides in and around us, and we're very, very good against them. So that might play a part. But I think we just need to be a little bit better and maybe tweak it right now, just so we can cement our place in the playoffs and then have a chance of going up. But let's look at the Plymouth game in isolation, because Boro came back 3 times, a goal from Jonny Passionhausen. So you might smile on that one. Jonny Passionhausen, Emmanuel Latte-Lath and Hayden Hackney helped Boro get a draw at home park. But Tom, how would you assess the performance against Plymouth?
Like I say, I thought it was quite poor, to be honest. Which, in a way, is a good thing that, this is where the bar is for a poor performance for a Michael Carrick team. Because I said in our group chat after the game yesterday, we've had Boro teams in the past where their heads would have went down as soon as Plymouth went 1-up, and we'd have gone on to lose that 2-3, 4-0. And that is the only bit of credit I can give the team for the performance yesterday, is that their heads never dropped. It's a bit of a hallmark of this Michael Carrick team, or the teams that we've had over the last couple of seasons, rather, that they've always had this belief that we can get a goal back and we'll continue to play positively, and we did it. But as an overall performance, first 10 minutes, I thought the game was only going one way, and I thought we were going to absolutely steamroll them. We were breaking with a lot of consistency in that 10 minutes, and then it really turned. And I don't know if that was maybe it turned after the injury to Obafemi and Plymouth made a sub. But that it does kind of line up with when that change in momentum happened. Then we start seeing Plymouth on the attack, and I'm that deep into my Football Manager save at the moment that I'm only seeing things in key moments at the moment. And it felt like I was seeing key moments for Plymouth over and over again. The crosses into the box that weren't getting anyone on the end of them. And at that point, I was like, right, we're hanging on here. If we can just get to half-time. And obviously we conceded before half-time. But yeah, at that point, I was just like, we need to do something to kind of change this. And also in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, where have Plymouth got this level of performance from? Because, I wasn't expecting that much from a Wayne Rooney team who's bottom of the table, I'll be honest. But yeah, like at that point, we looked unable to cope with them. And it's it's not something that's a recognisable trait of this Boro team, is being unable to cope with the team. At least we will try and kind of come back or be a little bit smarter, but we really weren't yesterday, and I thought it was really poor from the players. Second half, we come out when we are looking a bit more positive, we get a goal back, and then we instantly go and concede another one, get a goal back, instantly go and concede another one, and it was the same goal 3 times. And as I said earlier, you need to be smarter in that situation. We need to be doing something to block out that crossing lane into the corridor of uncertainty, because that's essentially what caused it, and Plymouth were exploiting that pretty much every time they went forward, and we just had no answer to it. With the second one, conditions maybe did play a little bit of a part in that, because I think if Edmondson didn't slip, maybe we would have had someone back covering and we could have prevented the cross. But overall, I think I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks at least. I think a lot of our play has been a little bit scrappy at times in terms of passes going astray and giving the ball away. So it's something we need to work on, because we had some very winnable games over the Christmas period. We've got the one yesterday, Sheffield Wednesday, Burnley at home, I would say is winnable. And then Hull on New Year's Day. I watched the whole game yesterday, and they did look a little bit better than when we played them. So yeah, who knows how that's going to go? But obviously, it's a typical Boro thing to bottle a couple of games over Christmas time, but they're all winnable. And to get to where we want to be in the league, we need to be winning them, and we need to be better in these games. It's not a time to be putting in performances like yesterday. Like I said, the only bit of credit I can give them is coming back from a goal down each time and coming out of the game with a point. But on paper and going down there, that really should have been a game we took 3 points from, and we didn't deserve it, and we didn't play like we should have done.
Yeah, and I just want to come back to the bit where you were saying that first 10 minutes, because Boro were dominant, and we were chatting in our group chat, and I was like, bloody hell, these are keeping up on these in certain areas. And it was that 1-2 where Zaz knocked the ball through for Ben Dork, and you thought, hey, we're in for a good afternoon. And then Matt, the game really shifted, and Plymouth started to dominate the game. They went ahead 3 times. Boro had to equalise a number of times. But how do you think Plymouth turned the game on its head and made it really difficult for Boro and started to dominate?
Well, I think Tom made a good point on the Obafemi substitution. I think that might have halted our momentum to a degree in that first half. But although you'd expect a reaction from the opposition, you'd expect the game to swing both ways, it often does. I wasn't expecting a prolonged spell of Plymouth pressure for the final half an hour of the game. We just seemed to lose all composure on the ball. I know the conditions may have played a part, but the conditions were the same for both sides. And, they still, if you want to say, well, we were facing the wind in one half. Well, they were facing the wind in the second half, and they still scored 2 goals. So the conditions were the same for both sides. So that's no excuse. I think what they started to do really well is they bypassed our midfield incredibly easily in the first half. I thought our midfield was very, very poor. I thought Hackney and Howson were both poor on the ball, but they were playing through us with ease. I recall one passage of play where I think they got from back to front within 3 or 4 passes and they were in, which, is just way too easy. I don't know if it was Diaby, it might have been his name. I think it was their number 18. He was just floating around Hackney and Howson and dropping in between the midfield and defence, causing loads and loads of problems, getting in some really good spaces. But as well as that, they were just doubling up on our fullbacks and causing us real problems. I know we're going to talk about Borges in particular, but yeah, they especially on the left-hand side, or our left-hand side, doubled up and just started swinging crosses into the box. And we weren't dealing with the crosses first and foremost. Obviously, there was one after they'd scored initially. The first one, I mean, they had way too much space on the left-hand side. Dijksteel was tucked in too much. They put a cross in. Hardy is behind Dijksteel. He flicks it on, and then Gibson's at the back post completely on his own. There's no one there to track him. He's got a free header back post. There was another cross where Edmondson tries to head it, even though the ball was about half a yard off the floor. No idea why he tried to do that. Bryn ended up pulling off a really big save. Could have been 2-0. There's an argument. They could have had a penalty as well. I think out of the 3 shots they had, the second one from Edmondson in the first half, I thought was possibly a penalty. And again, in the second half, exactly the same again. Putting crosses in, uncontested. And I think it was for the third goal. There was no one tracking back. Doak didn't help Dijksteel in that scenario. Borges is asleep at the back post and allows, was it Bundu, who got the third to tap home, completely uncontested. So it was a mix of them targeting our areas really over and over again. Boro did not do anything to prevent it. We didn't do anything tactically. We didn't really recognise, both on the pitch and off the pitch, what they were trying to do. We were naive to it. We allowed it to continue happening. But I also think it is worth mentioning that there was no real support from Doak or McGree to actually help the fullbacks, especially in that first half. They were just left completely isolated, and Plymouth had their way with us, to be honest. So fair play to them for exploiting a weakness of Boro's, but I think it was massively a fault on our part that we didn't recognise that and do anything about it.
Yeah, and I think just on the 3 goals as well, yes, they've all came from the wings, a part of the pitch where Boro glaringly weak, which I'll come on to in just a moment. But if you look at the goals in isolation, the Edmondson slip it makes it really difficult for him to track back. But also on top of that, you don't see how Howson doesn't track the run of Giabi, who gets in behind him and is able to slot it in. So he has no real idea of where he is. And then for the third goal, Dijksteel, he has a decision to make, really. Does he go to the ball? Does he track his man? He does the latter and go try and track his man, and it allows him to have the space on that left-hand side to knock the ball in the box. And it's Dale Fry, not Borges, who gets caught in that. It's a great ball in. It's a fantastic ball, but the ball shouldn't have came in the first place. And, you can look at Dijksteel to go to the ball, and if he did that, the ball does go down the line, but the winger is in a position where that ball has to come towards Sol Bryn, or it has to be like an outswinger. So you've got that chance to recover then, and you've got players in the box to do it, but we don't. It's just like those split decision making, which I think makes it a bit of a problem for Boro. And it comes back to the whole individual mistakes. Boro made a lot of them yesterday and allowed Plymouth to get a real foothold in the game. But what I think was interesting, what did put me down a rabbit hole of like tactical analysis, was the game yesterday going, Borges getting a lot of stick again. Dijksteel look caught. And also, there's been games this season where everyone will say Borges is terrible, or the wing backs will get the most scrutiny in a game. So I looked at some teams that we've played against recently, teams that we've got beat against, teams that we've conceded 2 or more against. So I picked Leeds, Plymouth, Coventry, and Bristol City for an example. But I had a look at every single team that we've played against this season and look to see if there was any patterns that we could look into where Middlesbrough find in difficulty. And there's one big thing that we should say is a real positive, that Boro love to dominate the central area of the pitch. We normally have like a 7v5, which allows you to create really good opportunities and create a lot of chances. And I think that is a really beautiful and brilliant thing that we can do. When you control the center of the pitch, it allows you to have a better chance on goal. It allows you to create better chances. It also, gets your striker in a really good area of the pitch. So probably the reason why Boro are scoring so many goals is that they're dominating that central area. And I think that's a real big positive. However, on the other side of things, Boro are very, very weak on the wings. And this is the reason why we're seeing teams really occupy those areas, because they'll say, well, actually, we won't dominate and go man for man in the midfield, because Boro are actually really good off the ball in terms of moving the ball from side to side, getting in good areas and positions, and it pulls players apart, and that's fantastic. But what they will do is they'll go, well, actually, we'll just dominate the wingers instead, because that's where lots of support is. So what Plymouth did yesterday was they had a 2v1 on Dijksteel and a 3v1 on Neto Borges, because Riley McGree was so central in that game. where Boro had a box midfield, which we've seen them implement over like the last 6 months. And with McGree being so central in that game, it allowed them to say, well, actually, here's where all the space is, here's where the glaring weakness is, and here's where Boro will really struggle. But this is something that we've seen throughout the season now. So when we looked at Leeds, they'd had a 2v1 on the fullbacks. Bristol City were quite similar into some extent. They're the first team I've really seen to try and have a box midfield. And then when you looked at Coventry as well, a 2v1, a 3v1, and pretty much near every team that we've lost against this season has had an extra man advantage on the wings that Boro have played against. So is this a Riley McGree problem? I'm going to say no, because when we've played with Delano Bergzorg on the left-hand side, he is someone who will stay wide, but he likes to play more in the half space. So his recovery run isn't as big as what Riley McGree's is, but he still comes inside to try and play with a box midfield for the Middlesbrough side of things. And this is either a blessing or a curse, because you can actually give up space and you can play with a box midfield, and it really works. And it's a tactical strength that Boro have to create a lot of chances. But defensively, you are suspect, and it's not Neto Borges' fault. Yes, there is some problems where 1v1 defending, he can get done. Everyone can get done 1v1. But when it's 2 versus 3 versus 1, you are struggling defensively to really get like a foothold on that left back position. So my recommendation really, and I've seen Boro, this is the best I've seen Boro, is actually in a back 3, because you're able to protect Borges, and also you're able to protect, you still have a box midfield if you want to. I've done this with Delano Bergzorg. The box in midfield is a little bit wider than what it would be. Should be playing with 2 10s. However, you are able to have that recovery run. So you've got Edmondson, and you've also got your other centre back. I put Dijksteel there just for the example of it, with Van den Berg in there as a back 3. Probably wouldn't recommend we do that, but I just said this for the time being. But what you are able to do is put 3 people on your wings if you need to. So if people are doubling up on that left or right hand side, your recovery run from your centre back, your full back, and your number 10 is enough to match it. But also you're still able to dominate in midfield, and it gives you a better balance. And I think by doing that, you might nullify some of the weaknesses that you'll see from a Neto Borges, but also you'll be able to go more man for man in certain areas, which I think will actually probably benefit Boro even more, because we are really good off the ball in terms of possession, in terms of movement. But I think right now you have to tweak it, because your fullback is getting rinsed every single week. And if you don't address it now, I think you're going to get into a position where yes, the season's going to run away from you. But this is the second iteration where Carrick has a problem and he needs to fix it. The first year was the box midfield, and he couldn't solve it. But when he did solve it, he made Boro go into a box midfield, and that addressed it and stopped it from happening. Now, the second iteration is your fullback. So you've got to either address it and maybe go to a back 3, back 5 as a recommendation, or keep the system, but try and give him some more support, because it's not Neto Borges' fault. It's not Lucas Engels' fault. It's not Bangura's fault. And, Luke Thomas and Ryan Giles are probably the example, but every single left back has had a problem unless they've been in a certain position where they've really had been comfortable. One game was Alex Bangura against Chelsea. Appreciate he went off during the game and Luke Engel came on, of course, but also against Leicester as well. Teams weren't able to pinpoint us on the wings, and we had some really good balance of play. And Boro do play over back 3 at times when they're in possession, so there's not much of a tweak in terms of situations, but that rest defensive situation, it will give you more balance and it'll allow you to be in a position where you aren't getting rinsed in certain areas of the pitch. But I feel like I've rambled on a little bit to you, but do you guys think that it is time now that Boro do tweak the system a little bit?
I think you're spot on, firstly, Jonny, with what you've said there. Really well put across as well. I'm absolutely with you on it, because Borges gets a ton of stick. And I think when you just look at the game, it's quite easy to criticise him. And 1v1, I agree, he can be better. But there's no coincidence to me that he is another left back in a long list who've struggled in this system. And it is a system that asks so much of Boro's left back. You mentioned Engel, who struggled. You could drop Hayden Coulson into that. Bangura, would he be better in this sort of system? I mean, I think with what it sort of expects of you and his injury issues, I'd worry if he'd be able to maintain what's required in this system with his injury record. A lot of people, I think the easy go-to is well, Ryan Giles. The way I look at the Ryan Giles situation is his defensive shortcomings were masked quite heavily by how good he was going forward, and his output offensively, I think, outweighed his defensive shortcomings. And that's why I think all the other left backs have struggled, because Ryan Giles was not a great defensive left back, and I still feel like in this system he would struggle. I mean, he struggled at Hull defensively.
Yeah.
So I don't think bringing in Ryan Giles would make a difference defensively at all. The problem would remain as it always has done in this system. I think it's more a problem of the system, more so than what it is the player. And it doesn't matter which left back you bring in my opinion. Yeah, some might offer more offensively than others. That might be why people always go to the Ryan Giles and press the Ryan Giles button, but he'd struggle just as much defensively, as would Engel, as would Coulson, as is Borges. So for me, yeah, it's not a case of personnel. It's not a case of let's stockpile the left backs and buy another one in January because Borges isn't good enough. It's none of that. I think Borges has done all right, but he's not helped by the system. He's not helped by the players in front of him. And I'm with you 100%. Unless the system is tweaked, we're going to see this happen time and time and time again, regardless of who's in there.
I think I wouldn't want to see us go to back 3/5 because, I mean, the reason behind that and what I'm thinking is there's other clubs who do just fine with a back four. I do think it needs tweaking, but what are we doing that is costing us here that, you know, they're doing and actually doing better with a back four? For me, that's how you kind of look at it. You try and look at other teams and think, okay, they're playing with a back four, but they're not as leaky defensively or not as leaky at the full back areas. What can we do to support them a bit more? I think it's going to do us a world of good when Aidan Morris comes back, because defensively he helps out a lot. And you know, we've said many times on the pods in the early stages of this season, he just seems to see things coming before they happen, and he's always in the right area. I do think that's going to help. I do agree with Matt that it's not a personnel problem, because everyone's kind of still going on about Giles, and it's similar to what I said last week with Jonny Howson. The longer he's not been here, the better he's become. Because there's a lot of fans who are like clamouring for Giles to come back and be like, oh yeah, solve all our problems. None of our left backs have been good enough, etc. Those fans are also forgetting that during that playoff season, Giles was being targeted for a bit of criticism because he wasn't good enough defensively. And everyone's only remembering the good parts of Ryan Giles, the crosses up the pitch, the assists, but they're not remembering that it's definitely not an issue that we could solve by re-signing Ryan Giles in January. I think there's other stuff we could look at. I don't know off the top of my head what that could be at the moment. If it is a back three, fair enough. I do think in that sort of setup, we're maybe giving Ben Doak a little bit too much to do, and I don't think he's going to be as effective in his role going forward. And I also think in the system that we've got at the moment, in terms of attacking, I think that system works quite well. I think the attacking players know each other quite well by this point, and they do create a lot of chances. So that's why I'd be a bit hesitant to change the system completely, just in case we're taking anything away from up front. I did say last week there are some games where we maybe should change it up and go free at the back, and I still stick by that. We had a comment in reply to that saying, "Oh, you can't be doing that a couple of games a season." But we've seen it in the past. I seem to remember, a Steve McLaren Boro that were playing 4-4-2, going 5-3-2 against Man United and winning 4-1. It works for different games, and you can kind of still play that same way. But I think in terms of the system that we've got, it's so kind of well established that it's an issue that we need to resolve. But I wouldn't say completely move away from it. I think there's something that must be able to be done in that system that can help out the fullbacks. Whether that's, if Morris comes back and we see a massive improvement in that, I think it just says a lot more about our holding midfield depth than it does about anything else. But it's a problem for Carrick and the coaching staff to solve, and it's completely on them now.
Yeah, I think Morris is a big miss. I definitely think he's a big miss in terms of the way he reads the game, like you alluded to there, Tom. He's a player where we are best when he's in the team with Hackney because he's able to sweep up. I just don't think Howson can do it as well as he has done over like the last couple of years. And look, there's a lot of situations where we could say, well, we might have to give something up, but what will we gain by doing it? If we have to give up a little bit of our attacking threat just to be a bit more solid, then I'm willing to do it. I'd rather win a game 2-0 than win it 3-1. Do you know what I mean? For this time, because the goal differences will start to play a part eventually. We need to stop shipping goals in. I think that is just the one thing where at the start of the season, I thought we were being unfortunate, and I still think we've came a long, long way under Michael Carrick defensively. But now it's just that second iteration where I think we just need to adjust. And it's up to Carrick now. It's up to Carrick to really kind of sit down and go, how do we solve this issue? But every manager does this. We're not looking at it from isolation, but every single manager in the entirety of football has a problem. They have to find ways to find solutions to it. And can he do it or can he not? And that's where you get found out as a manager. Or not found out, but you have to adjust and try and change things all the time, which is why I really like Corberan at West Brom. He adjusts things really quickly and is able to identify things and adapt his game plan, which I think is really cool. But then what shortcoming he does have, he doesn't have a set style, which Carrick would have. But it's just adaptability of managers and what they see how the game might look. But it's just a position where we're in at the moment where we miss one key player or a couple of key players, and we also have a glaring weakness which we need to address. Will they both will Aidan Morris come back before Christmas, or just before the new year? And will Carrick address this situation that we're currently in? Who knows? But it does show, Matt, yesterday that we are still very good offensively, though, right? Because we've still scored 3 goals. We're still one of the top goal scorers in the league. We're still in a position where even when we are behind, we're still going to try and get back in the game at some point. So do you still think that it's actually a good thing that we're still scoring the goals needed to get themselves back into games?
Yeah, it's still a very commendable quality to have. I'm never going to complain about our style of play. The goals we score, the football we've seen under Michael Carrick's probably the best I've ever seen as a Boro fan. So I'm never going to complain about that and how good we are going forward. Tom made a good point earlier about Boro teams in the past maybe not being able to come from behind and rescue a point from that game. So that is a positive. You can swing out of it. But at the same time, when you look at where Boro are, I think there is still a lot to be improved on when it comes to our defensive side, but also our in-game management and the ability to recognise when there is an issue and rectify it. And I love Carrick's style of play, but I feel like this is a Boro team who try and outscore the opposition. We're a team whose goal is to play good football and score goals. It's not that we don't play to win, but we play to win in a certain way. And sometimes I wish we'd play to win in a different way. Sometimes, a bit like maybe what we saw at the end of the Millwall game, although granted we could have been 3-0 down in that game, as we mentioned. When I look at the other teams, the top teams in this league, who are in the top 4, where Boro should be, they find a way to win. And I've seen it with Sheffield United, and I don't want to mention Chris Wilder, sacrilege. But I've watched his Sheffield United side this season. Same with Scott Parker, doesn't play great football. And when it's not great, I'm sure it's horrible. But what they do is, regardless, they find a way to win and they manage games. And when they go ahead, they often maintain their lead and they ensure they come away with the 3 points. That in-game management, that we talk about savviness, we talk about being streetwise. That's what Boro are. We're a fantastic team to watch. We're a luxury team. We look great, flair, it's all great. But I think when it comes to that knack for just managing a game, seeing out a result, them fine margins in draws that could be wins or defeats that could be draws. That's the difference for me. So I'm never going to complain about how good we are to watch, but I feel like unless we improve our game management, unless we find ways to win like the top teams in this league do, I feel like we've got a ceiling. And I just don't think it's high enough to get promoted out of this league right now. When you look at us, you look at where them other teams are at the moment. So it's tough. You know, you take the rough with the smooth, great football, great to watch, but I still feel like there is a side of our game that we're lacking compared to them top sides.
Yeah, and just you were saying there, Matt, around like how commendable it is. Tom, how commendable is it to come back 3 times against the team that's probably the worst in the division?
I think, as I've said previously, the only bit of credit I can kind of give there is the fact that previous Boro teams would have bottled that and gone on to lose quite heavily. Like I say, it's a trait of the teams we've had under Michael Carrick that heads typically don't go down in that scenario, and we continue kind of still trying, and we will get goals back more often than not. I mean, we did it a lot in the first season, not so much last season, but then I think this season it has kind of picked up a little bit more. But we shouldn't have ever been in that position to begin with. So as much as I can kind of give the credit for the mental strength there and heads not dropping, I would also say that, you know, being that leaky defensively against a team who was coming into this in last place in the league just isn't good enough. So I don't think it's that commendable. It's like I say, just a little bit of credit that, you know, your heads didn't drop and we didn't lose 3-0 rather than draw 3-3.
Yeah, and just before we round things up, I just want to quickly touch on Ben Doak, Tom. He looked a bit of a frustrated figure yesterday. He has played a lot of games at the moment, and he had a bad injury last year. Do you think it's worth resting him for 1 or 2 games in the festive period at all?
I mean, we touched on this last week as well, and I thought yesterday was the game to rest him if we were going to. I don't blame him for being frustrated with that performance yesterday, and I think that is that really competitive side of him coming out, and I also think that shows why he is playing well. He is contracted to a Premier League club, and no one else in our team is, because he's got that desire to win, and it shows in that respect. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes we don't know in terms of, you know, sports science and measuring how much of an injury risk he actually is. If he's good to go for the next few games, carry on going, we can always rest him in the cup. If, you know, if he does need a rest, I'm sure that's already been spoken about, and, you know, maybe Jones can come in. If the rumours of the last week are true, Jones will have a little bit more motivation to put himself in the shop window. You know, we can do that, or potentially we can go with another option as well. But I think this is totally dependent on how Ben Doak is feeling, because based on ability, if Ben Doak is fit, Ben Doak plays. I think it's just that simple on the right-hand side.
Okay, then. Well, let's move on. Let's go to podcast questions. Yes, podcast questions. Every week you get the chance to ask us a question via Twitter, Boro_breakdown, or email, theborobreakdown@hotmail.com. I just want to quickly give a shout out to David, because he did ask us around if Boro's problems is individual quality, the way Carrick sets up, or a mixture of both. I feel like we've just covered that. So unfortunately, David, I just want to say thank you for that, but we'll move to the question on. We'll go to this one from Liv, Matt, and she asks, with January looming, what position speaks out to be the vital for improvement? So do you want to take it, Matt, given it's Liv, or would you like someone else to take it?
Well, you know, we were chatting about this when we were having our breakfast this morning. No, it's a good question. And I think obviously if players leave, then there are obviously other positions and areas where we need to improve. So I think looking at the squad as it is, assuming it will stay as it is, I think as we've discussed, left back is one people will dive towards, and I still feel like we are a bit weak at full back anyway. Maybe right back, maybe Dyke Steele may need a bit more competition with Luke Ayling. We don't know what his injury's like there. Obviously, he was missing out of the squad yesterday. But I think central midfield, I think we've seen without Aidan Morris, we just don't have another player in the midfield who has the same qualities that he does. And I think we've shown how much the midfield can struggle without him there. I think Howson isn't quite good enough consistently. He'll still have a good game here and there, but I think yesterday again we saw the midfield getting bypassed. And it's all right saying it against Leeds, who've got really good players, but against Plymouth midfield, it wasn't good enough. And I think Hackney and Barlaser are both more forward-thinking midfielders, so I would like someone else to come in who can maybe cover in a similar vein to Aidan Morris when he's maybe injured, not fit. I think we've saw without him, there just isn't another midfielder who can play with the same qualities that he does. So maybe another midfielder along the same lines as him.
Yeah, and I agree. I think another midfielder, a full back on the right-hand side, because Tommy Smith's not going to come back anytime soon. Well, it feels like it. Ayling's injured. You've got Dyke Steele there, who's out of contract, who could go in January. So 100% that is a position where I think you look to improve on. But the next question, it's from Matthew Hoppy, and it's from Jordan. And he asks, he doesn't even play for the under-21s anymore. He's completely vanished from the face of the earth. Surely a loan deal would be a best decision all around, and he's nothing more than depreciating asset. Can I get my teeth in? Which completely contradicts the model we're trying to achieve. What are your thoughts on this? Tom, what are your thoughts on this? Because I don't even think Matthew Hoppy is actually at the club anymore. I think we've just completely got rid of him and swept under the carpet. But what do you think?
I agree with you, to be honest, Jonny. I haven't heard about him for ages. He didn't impress when he had chances, so it wouldn't surprise me if we've got rid. Maybe if there was something in his contract where it was like, if he plays another game, we have to pay a certain amount or something like that. That could be a potential explanation of why we've not seen him play another game for the club. But I know it contradicts the model that we're going for. But I do feel like in the model that we're going for, we're occasionally going to have these players that we sign with the right intentions and think, we can make something of these players, and it just doesn't work out, and we have to kind of cut our losses. Maybe this is one of those cases. It's encouraging that we don't see too many of those, but potentially it is just that.
Yeah, I think it is as well. But if Matthew Hoppy's here, do let us know where you're at. The next couple of questions that we have are more lighthearted. I feel like we've went in this podcast and been analysing a lot, but I want to go in a different approach. And it's from Lou, and they ask, which Boro player do you think would cook the best Christmas dinner, and which one would cook the worst? I'll let you both answer this. I'll come to you first, Matt. Who do you think cooks the best Christmas dinner, and who do you think cooks the worst?
Well, I would have thought Aidan Morris until I saw that snippet on Boro's social channels earlier in the week, where some of his takes on what he likes on Christmas dinner were absolutely appalling. I think maybe Tommy Conway might cook a nice Christmas dinner. Maybe Conway might be a surprise. Naturally, you got older members of the squad who might have cooked more Christmas dinners in their time. Maybe Jonny Howson, he could cook a passionate Christmas dinner. You know what I mean? As for the worst, I have a feeling Dale Fry would just be absolutely atrocious. I feel like he just, it'd be mash out of a packet, carrots out of a packet, Aunt Bessie's Yorkshire puddings, it wouldn't be homemade or out. You can tell I get trapped on Christmas Day, can't you? Yeah, there are a few that I'm thinking of, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys think.
Tom, I'll come to you. What do you think?
Well, you know what? Interestingly, Matt, I got caught in a queue for a carvery behind Dale Fry once at what was it? It was somewhere like the Bridge Inn or something like that. Never felt so humbled as standing next to him, because I was like, I've never felt so short. This is really bad for my ego. But he clearly knows what a fine carvery dinner tastes like, I think he'd just book out for Christmas dinner. I agree with you. I was thinking Tommy Conway as well. But I can also see Matt Clark there in a Christmas jumper, pair of Christmas oven gloves, plating up a turkey. I think Matt Clark's a shout for this one. And worst one, well, it's difficult. I would have to say one of the younger players if they got the chance to cook it. So you know what, maybe Solbrun. Maybe he's good with his goalie gloves, not so good with the oven gloves.
I'm not going to even address that comment. But for me, I think the worst will be Hayden Hackney. I just have no confidence in his Christmas dinner making abilities, to be honest. Not a chance. And I agree with you, Tom. I think Matt Clark has what it takes to make a fine Christmas dinner, you know. I can just see it. I reckon he makes a cracking turkey. You know, he puts it in gas mark 6, lets it cook for 5 hours, but it's all in the prep work in Matt Clark's life. And I think he makes a cracking Sunday dinner and a Christmas dinner. And then finally, the final question is from Simon. They're asking, is Christmas pudding still the top dessert on Christmas Day? I'm going to tell you for now, Simon, it is 100% not. There, I said it.
I completely disagree with you there, Johnny, but I'm also going to come out with an even more controversial take. I don't have anything on Christmas pudding, and I think that's the way to eat it.
A dry Christmas pudding?
Dry Christmas pudding. I don't want any of that sauce shite on it or anything like that. Just dry Christmas pudding.
Mate, you're a scumbag. What on earth is wrong with you? A dry Christmas pudding. It needs something like a cream or a custard or something. It needs something. I don't think it's the greatest of all time of desserts on Christmas Day, but to have it dry,
what's your goat dessert on Christmas Day then?
I enjoy a key lime pie, you know. I really do. I just think
is that Christmassy?
I think so. I think it's Christmassy. I do like a key lime pie, a little cheesecake, just something a little bit sweet, you know. I've had a lot of meat, a lot of veg. I just fancy a really good dessert, and I just think sometimes the Christmas pudding is just too much. It's past its sell-by date now, you know. Yeah, it might last for 6 months, but it's not the point anymore. It's not good enough. But I don't know what you think, Matt. What do you think? Go on, Tom, unless you're going to add something there.
I was going to say, I think typically a Christmas dessert needs to have Christmas in the name, unless it is like a foreign Christmas dessert, where I will kind of throw out a shout here, Stollen. Stollen is absolute top tier dessert.
Yeah, okay, fair. I'll let you have that one. But Matt, what do you think? Anything else to add?
The only thing that should go with a Christmas pudding is the bin. Just chuck it in the bin. Absolutely horrid. Horrid. Oh, can't stand it. I'm not one for desserts on Christmas. I'm too full after my Christmas lunch. I just need to collapse on the sofa or rest for a bit. But Christmas pudding, oh, God, no.
Yeah, I think if you're not going to have like an actual Christmas pudding, I feel like you need to have some sort of like a celebration, heroes or Quality Street to go alongside it and just to snack away on the evening, you know. But I think you need something afterwards. The day is for eating. I don't think it's for, you know, just sitting there and not addressing the situation of having a sweet afterwards. I think you've got to have a starter, a main of your Christmas dinner, and a dessert a little bit later on. And then if you're a bit too full from all the beer, have a coffee at like 6 o'clock. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know what you think. And after eights
are vital. After eights are a top tier system player for Christmas. They know the job, and they just do it well.
Yeah, they're like a James Milner of Christmas and after 8. You know, I think that's where nothing fancy, just get the job done. That's it.
Bet Roy Keane loves an after 8, doesn't he? He'll love an after 8, Roy Keane, won't he?
Yeah, they do the job, and I think he's happy with that, you know. But let's move on. I know enough of this Christmas chatter. We're here to talk a bit of trivia now, because get your pens and papers ready, gents. Because the question today is Boro and Sheffield Wednesday have played each other 117 times, but who has won the most? So Boro and Sheffield Wednesday have played each other 117 times. Who has won the most and how many times have they won as a bonus point? Your timer starts now. Okay, your time is up. Your time is up. Who would like to go first with their answer? Any takers? I'll go, Matt.
Yeah,
You
I'll
go
go
first.
first.
Oh, fair enough. Then Tom's jumping in. Tom, come and give me your answer.
I've gone with Chef Wed and 47 for the bonus point. I was going to go 57, had a brief rethink, and now I'm regretting my choice. I think it might have been higher than that, but I'm going to go with Chef Wed.
Okay. And then, Matt, what do you think?
It's interesting you went 47, Tom, because I went 47 and changed my mind to 48, but I've gone with Boro. Boro 48.
Tell you what, you're both really close here, you know. You're both very close. So, out of the 117 games, Sheffield Wednesday have won 49. Middlesbrough have also won 49. So it was a trick question. So no one has actually won the most. I just thought I'd mess with you and mess with you who's listening or watching us. I just thought it'd be quite funny. So let's move on to Boro's Boxing Day clash now, where Sheffield Wednesday are 9th in the championship table after a 2-0 win over Stoke. And we caught up with Matt from Wednesday Till I Die to find out a little bit more about Sheffield Wednesday's season so far.
Hi there guys, it's Matt from the WTID pod here, just previewing the game up at Middlesbrough on Boxing Day. I suppose I've been asked to give a little bit of a rundown of three things, how the season's gone so far for us, players to watch and obviously predictions. So I'll start with how the season's gone for us so far. Season's been brilliant so far from a Sheffield Wednesday perspective. We were a side last year who were battling relegation all year, didn't obviously only get out of it until the last day of the season where we cemented our championship status away at Sunderland with a 2-0 win. This year we started slow, but the start that we had was quite difficult, where we played a number of the teams who were expected to be competing at the top end of the division in the first 7 games, and since then we've kicked on. We've looked really, really good since around mid-ish October all the way through till now. Performances are nothing to write home about really, for the most part, but actually we usually find a way of getting the job done. I will say and preface all of this with that is against sides who are below us. We have only lost to 2 sides who are below us in the league, and we have only beaten 1 who is above us. So that might be a good omen for yourselves, obviously, at the weekend. But yeah, I think you will be hard pushed to find a Sheffield Wednesday fan who hasn't been really, really impressed with the squad this year. We sit in 9th. Myself and James sat on the podcast at the start of the year and predicted that is roughly where we would finish. Admittedly, we were expecting a little bit more investment into the squad because we still really haven't invested. However, we are... Yeah, we're a very different proposition to the one that rolled up to the Riverside towards the back end of last year. So yeah, it's been a really, really good season. Obviously, this week we've received the fantastic Christmas news that Danny Roll is set to stay at Sheffield Wednesday until the end of the year at least. He signed a 3-year deal in the summer, but he is one of the most courted managers in the Championship at the minute, as you'll have seen from all of the media outlets over the past week, with him being linked to the Southampton job. He was also linked to the Hamburg job over in Germany as well. He is our our real main strength and main asset, and he's dragging the best out of the players who are there. I suppose in terms of coming on to players to watch, really, there are a handful that you should be really looking out for. I won't go through the obvious ones who you'll have seen playing for us for a number of years, your likes of Barry Bannon. I will highlight James Beadle, who plays in goal for us. James Beadle is currently the under-21 goalkeeper. He's trained with the England first team. He's now had just under a year at the club. He's on loan from Brighton. He's an outstanding goalkeeper, really, really good shot stopper. He's still learning his trade. Obviously, he's very young, but he's an outstanding goalkeeper. I'll then go to the middle of the park and talk about Shea Charles. Shea Charles is on loan from Southampton. They purchased him from Man City for £10 million. Southampton loaned him to us at the start of the season, and he has been a revelation in the centre of the field. He's been exactly what we were missing. We tend to play a 2 in there, and his energy, his tenacity, he wins the ball. He's also really good on the ball, finds a pass, can drive forward. He's exactly what you'd expect a player coming out of the Manchester City Academy to be, and you can understand why Southampton have paid £10 million for him. In terms of predictions for the game on Boxing Day, I'd love to sit here and say and be really positive because our away form is really good. We've won 4 of the last 5 away games. However, we're not going to try and kid ourselves here. We know that Middlesbrough are a very, very good and strong side, irrespective of the result at Plymouth at the weekend. We know the Riverside is a very tough place to go. It's going to be a really, really tricky game. We are traditionally this season better away from home than we have been at Hillsborough, but for the most part, our season seems to follow a strict rule of win 1, draw 1, lose 1. I think over the festive period, this was the one that was the most concerning for Sheffield Wednesday fans in terms of the opposition. We had Stoke, obviously, on the weekend just gone. We have got yourselves on Boxing Day, and then we've got Preston away. So this would be the one which I suppose Sheffield Wednesday fans will be looking at and thinking you can drop points. I can't sit here and say that we're going to win, but I'd be hard pushed to suggest that we are going to get absolutely battered, which could comfortably happen. You know, I was at the Riverside earlier on in the year at the end of last season, and it could have been 14 versus 11 on the pitch. Middlesbrough that good that day. I'm going to back for a 1-1 on Boxing Day, and everybody can go home somewhat happy. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.
Thank you for that, Matt. So he's going for a 1-1 draw and expecting a really difficult game. So that will mean a Sheffield Wednesday win of 10-0 at this current rate of how Boro are performing. But guys, what are your predictions for the game against Sheffield Wednesday? Assuming you'll be full of, from food and Christmas dinner, and in your case, Tom, it's horrible, horrible dessert. So what would be your predictions for the game?
I'm going to go 2-1 Boro. And it's definitely not a horrible dessert. I would advise everyone tries it.
Okay, then we'll go 2-1 and Christmas pudding for Tom. And then, Matt, what are you going to predict?
Yeah, I was going to go 2-1 as well. I think we've been pretty good at home at Boxing Day, haven't we, in recent home games? I remember a good one against Forest a few years ago. And it'll be a packed out Riverside, so hopefully that helps. But they're only 3 points behind us in the league now, so they might level on points with us, which just drags us further into that pack below us. So it's a big game actually, and I'm hoping we'll get the win. So 2-1.
Yeah, and I'm making a hat trick. I actually thought it was going to be 2-1 as well. Really difficult game for us. Danny Rowe's a fantastic manager. He's setting them up really solid at the moment, and it's on us to break them down. I think if we score early, we'll take the game on and really grow into it and win 3-0. But I think it's going to be a really difficult game for us. But I'll take a 2-1 in front of a packed out Riverside. But Tom, Matt, thank you very much for joining me as always. To the listeners and the viewers, thank you so much for watching us and listening to us. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. That helps us to get found and chatted and all that fun stuff. But for right now, this has been the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was all your Boro Match Day chatter in a pod. Up the Boro.